And talking about making China pay, there was an attempt to do this earlier this month. The world's top economic powers met in Cornwall for the G7 summit. It was the first in-person meeting of world leaders in a long time, so naturally the stakes were high. Would the leaders and their massive entourage trigger a Wuhan virus outbreak? It's been 10 days since the summit ended. The G7 circus has moved on, but in Cornwall, things are bad. Wuhan virus cases in the county surged 2,500% after the summit. So was the G7 a super spreader event? And if it was, what does it mean for future summits and global events?
And today, we're taking a step towards that moment when we learn to live responsibly with COVID, when we cease eventually to rely on detailed government edicts and make our own decisions. I'm going to pass that one.
That was Boris Johnson on the 10th of May. A cautious victory call after 3 rounds of lockdown. Live responsibly with COVID, he said. A lesson he would ignore exactly a month later. June 11th, 2021. The G7 assembled in the southern corner of England, in this sleepy county called Cornwall. A dozen world leaders descended on these beaches. Accompanying them were hundreds of staffers and security details. They met. They drank. They barbecued. And they left. Not exactly COVID responsible. More than a week later, this is the result. The Wuhan virus cases in Cornwall have surged 2,500%. Local businesses and residents are on high alert. Some have shut down completely. Far from leaving a legacy, the G7 has left a health crisis. Look at these numbers. On June 2nd, Cornwall recorded 4 cases per 100,000 people. By June 16th, it rose to 131 cases. Only one event separated these dates, the G7 summit. But how did the virus breach Fortress Cornwall? Certainly wasn't the leaders. Most of them arrived fully vaccinated. But what about their entourage? An estimated 20,000 international visitors attended the summit. They were staffers, advisors and security details. There were locals too, including cops, hospitality workers and protesters. So did any of them breach the bio bubble? Did the UK government hide the risks? Downing Street's response is complicating matters. This is what a spokesperson for Boris Johnson had to say. We are confident that there were no cases of transmission to the local residents. All attendees were tested. Everyone involved in the G7 work were also tested during their work on the summit. But is there any evidence to back this claim? The UK government had conducted a risk assessment on holding an in-person summit, and those documents are still locked away. They could hold the key to clearing the government or implicating them. So locals in Cornwall smell a cover-up. At $100 million, the G7 bubble was among the most expensive ones. Still, it wasn't enough. Most of the cops, chefs and hoteliers at G7 were young Britons. Some were yet to be vaccinated. The summit put all the foreign delegates inside the bubble, but the host workers were piled outside. It was a super spreader waiting to happen. Cornwall's experience should be a lesson to the world, to all the summits being planned and the tournaments being played. The organizers shield the players and the delegates. But what happens to those outside this bubble of privilege? To all the businesses and the fans? Have world leaders and football players suddenly become frontline workers? Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.